Those bells are bells that Lincoln himself probably heard. It's kind of a cool thing, isn't it? Anyway, guys, this is Nathaniel Gavronsky. I'm getting to start the final leg of my trip home from Washington, D.C. I'm ending up in Lincoln's professional house, the house that he had when he was a state legislator in Illinois, and the house that he had before Springfield became the state capital of Illinois. One of the reasons why he wanted the capital to be moved to Springfield is it was a shorter commute. But they have it all lit up tonight, so I figured I'd stop by and say hi. The significance of the Lincoln House on this trip is, I think it's pretty obvious that, you know, with our country being so ununified right now as it is, it's good to remind ourselves of the tragedy that took place the last time we were so separated from each other politically, and that the great sacrifices were had on all sides, and there was some positive outcomes, like the ending of slavery, and there's a few other things that happened as far as like people who were born in the United States are U.S. citizens. I mean, not every country does that. I don't know if people realize that, but you can be born in multiple EU nations and not be an EU citizen or even be a citizen of that country. And I don't think enough people know that the United States is somewhat unique in this aspect. Those 3 Civil War amendments are pretty important, and they have an impact on today's everyday history. But the significance of Lincoln is that, you know, when Lincoln left this house to go to Washington, he never saw his dog or this house again. His widow actually never would live in it again either, and it was up to his son to finally figure out what to do with the house after renters tried to, you know, basically rip it up. But the significance of Abraham Lincoln in this whole situation is kind of important to me, because a lot of things that Lincoln did at the time that he did them were said to be illegal, unconstitutional. You can't do that. You can't do that. You know, we're going to do this, and you're a horrible president. You're a horrible president. And now Abraham Lincoln sits as one of the top presidents in U.S. history. Most of what he did probably wasn't legal constitutionally, but there really wasn't anyone, you know, we're in such a crisis, who was going to stop him. The thing is now is that the divide out in the public split apart the government. And now it's the divide within our government is splitting apart the people. It's a little bit different dichotomy with, you know, how things are being split apart. And where in 1860s, there were a lot of politicians trying to find a way to keep the country together, and the people tore it apart. And now I'm seeing more rhetoric from politicians explaining why we need to rip it apart instead of keeping everything together. And that is a significant change, and I believe it is a serious problem that we need to deal with. Too many politicians nowadays are seeking out, you know, their own, you know, 5 minutes of glory, and not looking at the whole of the whole picture here. I don't believe Donald Trump set everyone up to riot and to take over the Capitol. I believe he encouraged people to go use their First Amendment rights for redress of grievances and to show support for what they thought needed to be done. Regardless if it could be changed or not, 75 million people feel that this election was not done in a way that was fair and had a fair result. The Supreme Court justices from around the state, most notably the Supreme Court Justice of Wisconsin, stated that, you know, there are serious challenges with what is going on here, but the courts are limited mostly on procedure, on being able to do anything. And I think that is where we're having our biggest problem, is that the courts here do have a huge impact. There have been times in history where the courts have ordered the President of the United States to do something. Andrew Jackson said, I'd like to see him enforce it, but Richard Nixon actually followed the court's orders and did what the court asked him to, even though he didn't really want to. I think the courts should have taken this up on the merits, so we could have had some type of solution, some type of realization of what the ending is. And now it's all academic, but now we're never going to know. So people who like Biden are going to say Biden is the president. People who don't like Biden are going to say he's illegitimate. Just like during Trump, people said that they liked Trump, that Trump was their president, and people who didn't like him said he was illegitimate. You can't continue to have one president after another be illegitimate to over half the electorate. A country can't survive that long, and I really think we need to start looking at what we're risking here if we lose it all. The history that our ancestors and the people who became for us have learned, mostly the hard way, should be things that we should take in consideration when we review our decisions that are going to affect not only our contemporaries, but for generations to come in the future. I believe that if Abraham Lincoln knew what he would have to sacrifice to preserve the Union, he would. Now, one thing about Abraham Lincoln is that he was elected for 2 terms. However, back during this time period, the inauguration of the president didn't happen until mid-spring. And in fact, Lincoln had only been inaugurated for the second time for only a few weeks before he was assassinated. So essentially, a majority of all the things that he accomplished, minus the creation of the Secret Service and maybe 1 or 2 small little administrative things, everything he accomplished in his first term. Look at presidents like JFK. He prevented a nuclear war in his first term, and he never got a chance to even finish it. I believe that he tried to finish what the previous president was doing with the Bay of Pigs, and that was a bad thing. But he had good and bad things within his term, and he learned from his first mistake when it came down to the second go around in Cuba. So thankfully, sometimes greatness comes with only in 1 term. You don't have to have 2 terms to be a great president. And actually, throughout history, many second terms of great first-term presidents don't end up so well. Funny fact, George Washington, the main reason why he didn't run for a 3rd term is I don't think he would have gotten elected. When he finally stepped down, there were members of the House of Representatives that stood and applauded and grateful that Washington was finally gone. I do think that Trump did a lot of great things for this country. I think the Middle East peace deals were phenomenal. I think not going to war, my biggest reason why I supported him was that he didn't want to go to war. Not in Syria, not anywhere in the Middle East. He's trying to pull troops home. Listen, I live in Iowa, where the national average of people who serve in the military is about 1%. In Iowa, it's nearly 8%. Yeah, I care about going to war, and I don't really want to go to war. And any president says that they're not going to allow troops to go everywhere and get involved in wars, I'm going to support them. I don't care what party they're in. And so he as far as my major concern and my major campaign promise, he upheld it by not starting new wars and getting us out of the ones that we're in. As far as the economics are concerned, we have never had such a great economy in the entire history of the United States. As far as this pandemic is concerned, if you try to say that the President of the United States is fault that this pandemic happened, I think you need to have your head examined. I do think that Chinese have a huge amount of fault at this. Most of the world believes that the Chinese have the huge amount of fault in this, and that even though he wasn't publicly saying anything, President Trump was behind the scenes working on solutions on how to get through this. But panicking causes more problems than it solves. In fact, you look at the Great Depression in the 1930s, it was the panic that actually caused of not being able to get your money from the bank that caused more of a problem than the actual stock exchange collapse. It was quite a while after the stock exchange dropped out of the bull market into the bear market that we have a problem. That's because one guy in New York City went to go get money out of his bank, and the bank didn't have it. It took a little while, but that panic is what caused the Great Depression. And that's what kind of happened in 2008. So trying to keep people from panicking is a smart move when you're trying to keep the country in a situation where it can deal with problems. This Operation Warp Speed, never in human history has something like this been done, and he succeeded within the year. You must give Trump credit for that. He pulled that off. When it comes to dealing with a lot of aspects of the pandemic, right now, most of this stuff, the getting at the vaccine is all on governors' shoulders, and you're seeing governors like New York, Governor Cuomo choke when it's getting doses out to the people who desperately need it efficiently. Many doses are going bad because they're not being done correctly. This is due to state leadership, state mishandling. In fact, when the Constitution was written and designed, the states were supposed to be more powerful than the federal government. Even in our current system, the states were supposed to be more powerful, and the states have botched it, like California, New York, New Jersey. And you're seeing states like Iowa do relatively well compared to what other states are with the same population per capita. You're seeing economies not be choked so badly, but you're not seeing the virus spread out of control in places like Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, as you are in even upstate New York, which is pretty rural. Just because you can't, locking down things was never going to solve things. But you don't know how to deal with a situation that you never dealt with before. In fact, no one in the country knew exactly what to do in this situation. We haven't dealt with it since the 60s, and before that since 1918. And a lot of the people who dealt with it then aren't around now to give us any pointers. And it's just trying to blame it all on the president, on any president, either Biden, Obama, or Trump, is, I think, a fool's errand. You look at, there's a lot of mishaps that happened during the Civil War. Some that are pretty significant, and you can't look at it as that, well, Lincoln, if the Lincoln's fault, it was all Lincoln's fault, Lincoln didn't do it right. There's a lot of other moving parts that are in this situation, and you can't blame it all on just one person. We are bigger than just one man. The United States, it's not symbolized by just one person, and it shouldn't be. It's a huge assortment of people working in unison, trying to make a system as wide and fast as the United States a successful place. And trying to hold one person accountable for everything is completely nonsense. So that's why I'm trying to hit all these significant places from Lincoln, because I think this is a significant time in history. I was at the Battle of Jenkin's Hill. It was really intense. I missed out on something I really wanted to see, which was watching them debate the election results. I didn't get to do that. I'm kind of upset about it, but I did get to see this president speak, and unfortunately I saw the Capitol get, breached. Not even during the Civil War was the Capitol breached. And Richmond wasn't that far from Washington. And so it was history that I saw, even though it wasn't the history that I wanted to see. I took it in. I'm still taking it in, actually. I think we're all still processing it. But I'll be able to say that I was part of history, at least in the observations, because I did not enter the Capitol illegally, and I had no participation in any destruction of anything. But it was something to see. I saw it. I won't be going back to anything like that anytime soon, because I don't want to be part of anything that's going to be that destructive. But I think that we need to realize that you can't silence people. By silencing them, telling them that they can't speak, you're going to lead to more of this stuff. And I think I'm going to do a video going over the significance of our First Amendment and the reason why you see things in the United States that are associated with being hate symbols or symbols of this faction or that faction. These same symbols are illegal in most other countries, but they're legal here in the U.S., and why that's a good thing. I want to do a video discussing that. I'm just going to try to find a good location to do it. But anyway, this is Abraham Lincoln's house in Springfield, Illinois. He didn't actually build it. He did add on to it quite a bit. The building, I think, was built right around like the 1925. He moved here in 1825, and I think he moved in around 1830. He moved in just shortly after. Wisconsin was still using Burlington as the capital of Wisconsin, and Dubuque and Burlington were just Burlington, Iowa, and Dubuque, Iowa were just being founded that year when Lincoln moved here in Springfield. In fact, a lot of the Indians that were in this area when the people who settled Springfield, they're the ones who were moved into what is now the Iowa, and where we get a lot of our cities and towns where we named them after Indians. They come from this area, from here all the way up to Prairie du Chien, what is now Wisconsin. They all moved into what is now Iowa from here, and so a lot of those famous names, they were probably born in and around this area. So significance between Springfield, Illinois, and Iowa. So there's a lot of it, but I want to show you guys around a little bit. But the streets here are done correct to the time period. And the last time I was here, they didn't have it all lit up like this, but they did have oil lamps during this time period. Now these lamps are electric, but this is basically what it would have looked like. And the houses all around here, you're not gonna be able to see my face anymore, but the houses, the ones that are still standing, are period to this time period. Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, his office is right down at the corner in one of these older houses. They're all into museums. No one lives in any of these anymore. They're all museums. The one right across the street from Abraham Lincoln's was actually an orphanage for a very long period of time. But most of the houses, you can only go into a couple of, the entry parts of the house, and then the rest of it's all blocked off for storage and other things. But Lincoln's house, I mean, obviously the lights that go up off the walls, yeah, those wouldn't have been there. But I like how the fact that they have is some of the lights in the house lit up. But yeah, this is very cool. I'm just gonna walk you guys out of here. Oh yeah, this is, for the most part, this is what Lincoln would have seen if he would ever been walking around. There you can see the new capital of Illinois from here. He never would have seen that, of course. That Capitol building was built in the 1860s. They started building it in the late 1860s, early 1870s. Oh, one thing I will show you. From this perspective, there's a famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln taken from this exact spot at this house right here. And this is the view. It's somewhat similar to what it was like. The trees are still there. Yeah, this place is so cool. Actually, another place that's like this, for those of you that are into presidential politics and history, the Hoover area in West Branch, Iowa, is very much done the same way. The streets aren't quite done the same way, but there's a little bit newer history. But see, the sidewalks here are wooden, and in fact, all the sidewalks that on this time period would have been made out of wood, and they would have had to replace them. And see, when they bring all the sawdust in on the streets, they would redo the sidewalks. They would use the old boards of the sidewalks to trot down the streets to make it. And this would have been, because it would have been muddy, so it was dirt. There was a lot of straw they would put down, and then the gravel, but they'd have a lot of straw and a lot of vegetation that they would lay down. But I'll try to zoom this out a little bit. You see more of Lincoln's house. That's his bedroom. I want it lit up there. Mary Todd Lincoln's commode, the original one, is still up there. I don't know why they decided they wanted to keep it. They do have quite a few original items of Abraham Lincoln's. Actually, one of the couches in there was his dog's couch. His dog loved the couch, and so when he left, the dog stayed in Springfield, and the couch went to a friend's house, and the dog stayed with the couch. The couch stayed with the dog. The couch is back. Fortunately, the dog didn't make it. Dog's not with us still. But yeah, that's Abraham Lincoln's house. I hope you guys enjoyed that little video. I wish you all well. Take care.